Chosen one, congratulations for refusing to yield when the pressure was designed to break you. Your persistence has created a devastating friction in the lives of those who walked away from their own potential. Somebody is angry because they forfeit their spot and quit on themselves, but you won't. Your refusal to quit has made their compromise unbearable to witness. There's a kingdom, not ancient, not fictional. This is a kingdom you recognize because you have lived inside it. It is the kingdom of potential, the place where calling lives before it becomes visible, where vision exists before it becomes reality, where every person who was ever meant to do something significant starts out. In this kingdom, there are two thrones. They sit side by side, built from the same material, carrying the same weight and the same power. Both are real, both are waiting, both are inscribed, not with names yet, but with the shape of the person who was always supposed to sit in each one. You were always meant for one of those thrones, so was someone else. You started the journey close to the same point, close enough that you both knew the vision, close enough that you both felt the pull of the calling, close enough that there was a season, early on, where the fire was equally alive in both of you. You were both pointed at the throne, you were both moving, and then the road got hard. Here is the hinge point, the moment everything after it was built on. The road did not get hard in a way that targeted only you. The hard came for both of you equally. The obstacles were not custom designed to stop one person and wave the other through. The same fire came for both thrones. The only question was who would stay seated. One of you stood up, one of you stayed. That single choice, made in a moment of discomfort and fear and uncertainty, is the source of everything happening around you right now. Every strange silence that follows your wins, every sideways glance, every pointed question, every subtle attempt to introduce doubt into your momentum, all of it traces back to that moment, the moment the other person decided the cost was too high and chose to forfeit the spot that was made for them. And you stayed. You kept your seat. Now the results are showing. The throne they walked away from is getting more and more visible, more and more undeniable, every single day that you occupy it. That is the beginning. Two people, two thrones, one choice, and a consequence that neither one fully understood at the time. The consequence is coming, but first you need to understand the rule. There was a rule. It was unwritten. It was unspoken. But it was enforced with the precision of law. The rule said this: you are allowed to sit on the throne as long as you do not shine brighter than the people who chose not to. That is the whole rule. That is the thing operating underneath every relationship, every circle, every community you have ever been part of. You were welcome to dream. You were welcome to talk about your vision and your calling with as much enthusiasm as you had, because talking is safe. Talking is a dream that belongs to everyone, because it has not cost anyone anything yet. But the moment you started actually doing it, the moment the dream became a daily decision, a daily sacrifice, a daily act of showing up regardless of how it felt, the rule activated. It activated silently. You did not get a warning. The first sign was not a confrontation. It was a temperature drop, a certain warmth that disappeared, a certain energy in certain spaces that shifted whenever your progress came up in conversation. You felt it. You probably explained it away, but you felt it. Here is what that rule was actually protecting. It was protecting the person who quit from having to face what your persistence reveals. It was protecting the narrative they built, the narrative that said this was not possible, that stopping was the only reasonable option, that surrendering was actually the wise move. Your continued movement is destroying that narrative, one win at a time. Every breakthrough you hit acts as a wrecking ball through the justification they constructed for standing up from their throne. Here is where things begin to accelerate. As long as you were still in the early stage, as long as the results were invisible, the narrative survived. The person who quit could still position themselves as the realist and paint you as the dreamer. But the results are arriving now, slowly at first, then faster, then undeniably. With every result that lands, the stakes rise, not for you but for the person who gave up. Every level you reach makes the level they abandoned look more significant. Every door that opens for you is a door they recognize, with the cutting clarity of someone who was supposed to walk through it first, as one that was always available. The rule is breaking down, the narrative is collapsing, and the person who forfeited their spot is running out of explanations. This is where the resentment gets loud. This is where the subtle becomes less subtle. This is where the person who quit starts doing things, sometimes consciously, sometimes not, to pull you back down to the level where their decision still makes sense. Watch closely, because this is where the opposition reveals its true face. If you felt called by this message, hype this video so other chosen ones like you can be reached. Chosen ones do not get blindsided. Chosen ones see clearly, so let's name exactly what gets used against you. The first move is doubt, dressed as concern. It sounds like, I just worry about you. It sounds like, have you really thought this through? It lands like a question but functions like a verdict. The timing is never accidental. This kind of concern never surfaces when you are down and struggling. It arrives precisely when you are gaining momentum, right when you are about to take a significant step. Concern that only appears at moments of acceleration is not concern, it is interference. The second move is the comparison. Someone tried that and it did not work out. Most people who attempt this end up right back where they started. Every piece of that is technically a fact, but facts can be selected. A carefully curated set of facts delivered at the right moment can build a cage as solid as any lie. The third move is the withdrawal. The enthusiasm that used to show up for you simply stops showing up. The encouragement evaporates. What remains is a cold silence that communicates, without a single word spoken, that the support is gone. This is the most cutting move, because it gives you nothing to argue with. There are no words to push back against, just the absence, just the space where the warmth used to live. Here is what the old version of you might have done with all of that. The version that had not yet seen through the mechanism. That version might have internalized it. That version might have started asking, what if they are right? That version might have started softening the commitment, gradually stepping back from the throne, until one day arriving at the realization of having stood up from it, without ever consciously deciding to. That is exactly the intended outcome. The goal is to get you to forfeit your spot voluntarily, because there is no other way. The only one who can truly remove you from the throne is you. But you are not doing that. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with a cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. The doubt, the comparisons, the withdrawal, none of those are actually the hardest part of this path. The hardest part was always built into the road itself. It existed before any of that opposition started, and it is the part that explains why the other person quit in the first place. It is the beginning phase. It is the season where everything you are building is still small, still new, still unproven, still fragile. It is the season where the vision is completely real to you and completely invisible to everyone watching. You are pouring energy and sacrifice and faith into something that from the outside looks like nothing at all. In this phase, you look uncertain. People ask what you are doing with your life, and the honest answer sounds impractical. The work is unglamorous and slow, and it does not make for an impressive presentation. And this phase requires one specific thing that most people, including the person who forfeited their spot, were not willing to give. You have to stay in it without proof. You have to keep building when there is no visible evidence that the building is working. You have to carry the full weight of the calling alone, without the validation of results, without the comfort of other people's belief, for as long as it takes to get to the other side. The person who quit could not endure this, not because they lacked ability, but because they were not willing to be seen as uncertain during the process. They had an identity to protect, a reputation to maintain, a status that depended on being seen as someone who had it together. And this beginning phase is the part where nobody has it together yet. This is the part where you look unestablished and potentially naive, and you have to let people see you like that on the way to where you are going. Choosing to look good over becoming great is the exact trade that freezes a person in place. When you protect the current version of yourself so aggressively, you prevent the next version from being born. You made the other choice. You chose transformation over protection. You allowed yourself to be in process publicly. You allowed people to see you uncertain and unproven, and you kept going anyway. Through the questions, through the uncomfortable silences, through the moments where you had to look yourself in the eye and choose again whether you believed in what you were doing, you chose yes, a scared yes, a broke yes, a lonely yes, but yes every single time. And now, the page is turning. Here it is. The moment this entire journey has been building toward. The results are in. Not perfectly, not completely, but undeniably. Something has broken through the surface. The momentum that was underground is now visible. Everything you built in the beginning, every sacrifice, every scared yes, every day you stayed on the throne when everything in you wanted to stand up, is now paying out in ways that cannot be denied or explained away, and the person who forfeited their spot has to see it. Consider what that moment looks like from inside their experience. They are going about the business of the life they built around the decision to stop. That life has its comforts, it has its routines, it carries the safety of not having tried and therefore not having visibly failed. And then your name comes up. Your work becomes impossible to avoid. The result is right there in front of them. Something shifts inside their chest that they cannot stop or explain away. It is not simple envy. Envy says, I want what they have. What hits in this moment is something far more precise and far more devastating. I could have had that. Not, I wish I had that. Specifically, concretely, inescapably, I could have had that. The same raw material was available. The same calling was present. The same throne had their name on it. And they stood up. That is the thought that will not leave. That is the truth that cuts straight through every explanation they constructed. It cannot be reasoned away, because it is not a feeling, it is a fact, and that fact just became undeniable. The anger that follows is not really directed at you. It never was. The anger is the sound of someone colliding with themselves, with the version of themselves who made the choice, with the moment they stood up from the throne and built a narrative around why that was the right decision. That narrative just collapsed, and you did not cause that collapse by winning. You simply kept your seat long enough for the truth to surface on its own. Now here is what you do with this moment, because this is where the energy shifts entirely. You do not shrink. You do not apologize for your wins. You do not downplay your momentum or make yourself smaller, so the contrast feels less confronting. That is not compassion. That is self-sabotage, wearing the costume of kindness. What you do is lean all the way in, go further, build bigger, occupy that throne with your full presence, your full voice, your full unapologetic. Nothing can stop this energy. The most powerful thing you can do right now, for yourself, for your legacy, for every person watching who has not yet decided whether to get up, is show what it looks like to refuse to give up your spot. You are here because you stayed, and staying brought you to this. The throne is not just a throne. What was attached to it, what gets forfeited along with the spot, is bigger than either person knew when the journey started. When a calling is genuine, it does not arrive alone. It comes with provision attached, with favor attached, with open doors that were prepared specifically for the person who would walk through them in faithfulness to what they were built to do. You thought you were simply pursuing a vision. You were actually walking toward a full inheritance. Think about the opportunities that have shown up along the way. Think about the connections that made no logical sense, the resources that arrived at the exact moment the path required them, the moments where everything should have fallen apart and somehow did not. That was not luck. That was the inheritance activating, the provision that was always attached to the calling, releasing itself as you moved forward in faithfulness to the assignment. The favor was always inside the yes. It was waiting for someone to say yes and mean it, and to keep meaning it, even when it cost them. You kept meaning it, so the favor kept releasing. The person who forfeited their spot forfeited all of it, not just the visible dream, but every invisible layer of provision, momentum and favor that was attached to the calling. They said no to the assignment and walked away from the full blessing without knowing the price of that exit. The price is becoming clearer to them now, and here is what you need to hold. This inheritance is not proportional to what you can currently see from where you are standing. The calling was designed to do something significant in your life, in the lives connected to yours, across generations you have not yet met. The inheritance is designed to outlast you. Every person whose life shifts because you refuse to quit is part of the inheritance. Every door that opens because you proved it was possible is part of the inheritance. Every generation that benefits because you chose to stay on the throne is part of the inheritance. All of that was forfeited, traded for comfort, traded for the ability to say they never publicly failed. You get it all because you refused to stand up. Now let's talk about what actually separates you from the person who forfeited their spot. The answer is not talent. And here is the most important thing about what you carry now. You cannot lose it. Circumstances can shift, momentum can fluctuate, external results can face setbacks, but the championship mindset, built through living, cannot be taken from you. It travels with you into every challenge, every next level, every new wall you encounter. That is the real win. Not the result alone, the person you became while earning the result. Let's talk about where this leads, because sometimes, when you are still in the middle of it, you need someone to show you the destination clearly, so that everything you are walking through right now makes complete sense. It leads to victory. Clear, full, undeniable, exceeds everything you imagined victory. Not because the obstacles disappear, they will not. You reach victory because you are now the kind of person who does not need them to disappear. You know how to move through difficulty. You have done it before, and each time the doing of it adds something permanent to who you are, something that compounds in the direction of the life you were assigned to live. Think about the distance between where you started and where you are standing right now. That gap was built by the same choice made countless times in small moments nobody witnessed. Get up or stay down, go forward or retreat, say yes or find a reason to say no. You kept choosing the same direction, and that direction is taking you somewhere extraordinary, not just barely worth it in retrospect, but monumentally, overwhelmingly worth every hard season you endured. The peace that is coming is not the peace of having avoided risk. It is the deep, unshakable peace of obedience, of doing the thing you were placed here to do. No amount of comfort or outside approval can manufacture that kind of peace. It only comes from inside a life that is fully aligned with its calling. The freedom that is coming is the freedom to move, to expand, to go where you are directed without the weight of abandoned purpose pulling at your ankles. That freedom is real, it is near, and you paid for it with every season you gave to the process. The legacy that is coming is the thing that outlasts you, what people who have never met you will inherit because you refuse to stand up from the throne. That legacy is already being written in the decisions you are making right now, in the territory you are occupying, in the proof your life provides that the calling is real and the path is worth walking. Not a single layer of that inheritance is available on the other side of quitting. Here is something nobody in your circle said out loud, but everybody felt. When you started gaining real momentum, when the calling started looking less like a gamble and more like a destiny, there was an unspoken collective expectation. The expectation was that you would find a reason to slow down, not stop completely, just pull back enough, hesitate enough, make yourself small enough that the distance between where you were going and where others chose to stay would not grow too obvious. The expectation was that some internal sensor of social awareness would kick in and remind you that building too boldly was going to cost you the comfort of belonging. And for a moment, maybe you still remember it, you felt that pull, that invisible hand on your collar, that low voice saying, "Careful, do not outpace the circle, do not make it uncomfortable." You felt the pressure to manage your momentum out of consideration for people who chose not to have any. That pressure is real. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. It is one of the most sophisticated forms of resistance that exists because it operates from the inside. The person who forfeited their spot does not have to say a single word. The social programming does the work for them. You slow yourself down voluntarily. You become your own ceiling. But here is where that pressure actually comes from. It does not come from love. It comes from the discomfort of contrast. When you keep accelerating and others have chosen stillness, the gap between those two paths becomes impossible to ignore. And the easiest way to close that gap, from their perspective, is not for them to start moving. It is for you to stop. You stopping costs them nothing. You stopping costs you everything. You are being asked without anyone ever asking you directly to shrink your destiny so that someone else does not have to sit with the consequence of abandoning theirs. You are being asked to make your calling smaller so their abdication of theirs feels less significant. That is not an arrangement you agreed to. You do not owe anyone a slower, quieter, smaller version of your obedience. So when you feel that pull, and you will feel it, name it for what it is, and then do the one thing that makes the expectation completely irrelevant. Go faster. Not out of spite, not to make a point to anyone watching. Go faster because the calling is calling. Go faster because momentum rewarded with more intentional movement compounds into something extraordinary. Go faster because the version of you that was built by everything you have already walked through is finally fully operational, and slowing down now would be the most wasteful thing you could do with the person that process produced. The spot they expected you to vacate, you are not vacating it, you are expanding it, you are taking up more space, not less. You are claiming the full reach of the calling, every level, every layer, and you are refusing to apologize for a single inch of it. Here is a truth that will permanently change how you read resistance. Every time the interference escalates, every time the coldness sharpens, every time the attempts to unseat you get more creative, every time the subtle pressure to shrink increases, that is not a sign that something is wrong with your path. That is a progress report. Opposition does not escalate when you are irrelevant. Opposition escalates when you are close to something that matters. The further you go, the more the pain of what someone else gave up is amplified. And when that pain amplifies, the pressure directed toward you amplifies with it, not because that person has any real power over you, but because the contrast between your trajectory and theirs has grown past the point where it can be comfortably rationalized. Chosen ones do not flinch when resistance increases. You look at escalating opposition and you say, "This confirms I am on the right road. This confirms the spot I am occupying is significant enough to generate this level of attention from someone who gave up theirs. This confirms what I am building is real." Every move made to stop you has also been confirming something else, that what you carry is worth carrying, that what you are building matters, that you are close enough to an undeniable breakthrough, that the person who forfeited their spot is treating your proximity to it as a personal affront. You do not stumble when you realize this. You accelerate. The final answer to the anger aimed at you is not a confrontation, it is not a rebuttal, it is not a public statement. The final answer to someone who forfeited their spot is the person who kept theirs showing up again and again and again and building something so undeniable that the resentment eventually collapses under the weight of the evidence. So build, keep building. That is the whole answer. The most dangerous play comes last, and it comes precisely when you are closest to the breakthrough. It does not arrive as an external attack. By now you have learned to recognize and dismiss those. This one is internal. It is a familiar voice, the voice that sounds like wisdom and self-awareness and earned maturity. It is the voice that knows exactly which fear to activate and which past failure to surface at the worst possible moment. It says things like, "You have come this far, maybe that is enough." It says, "Do not overextend yourself." It asks, "What if you are not actually ready for the next level?" This is the last move played against you. It is not coming from the outside, it is rising from within. It is a slow, reasonable-sounding invitation to stand up from the throne yourself, to decide that here is far enough, to do quietly what the person who forfeited their spot did loudly. When that voice shows up, you need to understand exactly what it is. It is not your wisdom speaking. It is the accumulated echo of every person who ever quit. It is the energy of every forfeited spot, trying to add yours to the collection. You hear it, you feel it, you acknowledge that it knows exactly where to press, and then you keep going anyway. Because you know something now that you did not know at the beginning. You know what is on the other side of the wall. You have felt the momentum that comes from saying yes one more time when everything else says stop. You have lived through enough to know that the voice of surrender has never once been right about you. Every time you listened to it, you regretted it. Every time you ignored it and moved forward, you grew. You already know how this goes. You stay seated, not because it is comfortable, because you know what forfeiting costs. You have seen that cost settle into someone else's posture, someone else's silence, someone else's late-night reckoning with a choice that cannot be undone. You know exactly what it looks like to give up the spot, and you are not doing that. The person who forfeited their spot and cannot stop thinking about it is not the villain of this picture. That person is someone who made a choice in a hard moment, a choice that cost far more than they knew it would, and who is now living inside the consequence of it. The calling they put down is not gone. It is still there, still waiting, still asking in the quiet moments whether they are ready to come back. But here is what does not change. Here is what stays fixed, regardless of how clearly you understand their situation. Their pain is not your ceiling. Their grief over what they gave up does not create any obligation for you to give up yours. Their discomfort with what your progress reveals does not mean your progress should slow. You are not responsible for managing the reckoning they are having with the choice they made. You did not cause it. You cannot cure it. And shrinking yourself to relieve it would not help them. It would only guarantee that two people end up sitting in the same regret instead of one. The most useful thing you can be for anyone who forfeited their spot is proof. Unmistakable, ongoing, impossible to rationalize proof that the calling is real, the road is worth walking, and the throne does not get reassigned just because staying seated is hard. You be the example. You keep going so fully and so clearly that when the moment comes, if it comes, when someone who forfeited their spot decides to get back up, they have someone ahead of them on the path who already proved it was navigable. You are that someone, not by obligation, by position. You went first, you kept going, now finish what you started. Somebody is losing sleep over you, not from regret, from vision, not from haunting, from drive, not from the weight of what was given up, from the pull of what is being built. Somebody has been up in the quiet hours, not replaying an old decision, but working, building, moving, refusing to stop. That person is you. You were never the person in the cautionary ending. You were always the person in the triumphant one. You were always the one who stayed, the one who said yes when yes cost everything, the one who kept the spot that someone else decided to forfeit, the one who occupied the throne so fully that the whole kingdom had to acknowledge it. Somebody is angry because they forfeited their spot and quit on themselves, but you won't. Not now, not when the road gets hard again, not when the next wall appears, not when the internal whisper comes back one more time suggesting that here is far enough, here is not far enough. The vision is bigger than what you can currently see. The inheritance is real. The legacy is actively being written. You did not come through everything you came through to stand up from the throne. You came through it to prove the throne was always yours. Victory, recognition, triumph, that is what is happening. That is what was always going to happen for the person who refused to quit. Stay seated. Keep your spot. Go get everything that was prepared for you. The best part